It's been 3 months. It's been helpful because of the social distance.
I get 2.5 weeks, I get my second shot.
Yeah.
There's my plate.
I call the January 19th, 2021 meeting of the City Council for the City of Lake City. If everyone was coming for the pledge of allegiance, I ask that the presentation be given by Vice Mayor, City Council Member Chris Brennan.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Heavenly Father, thank you for the many blessings that you have bestowed on our community. We pray for the continued safety of those who are gathered here with us tonight and for all of our neighbors throughout our community. We pray for your guidance tonight as we make decisions and do the work of those who have entrusted us. Father, we ask that you protect our first responders, our law enforcement personnel, and our military that are serving in harm's way. Father, we ask these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Mr. Green?
Yes.
Mr. Long?
Yes.
Mr. Jefferson?
Yes.
Mr. Sampson?
Yes.
Mayor Witt?
Here.
Mr. Fenderline?
Here.
Mr. Hilgenberger?
Here.
Chief Gilmore?
Here.
Okay, we don't have any proclamation of minutes, we have approval of the agenda, and I've been asked to read item 2021-005 of the resolution, I'd like to do that after presentation, which is not up to date, so we are all with that. So, that motion, all in favor, say aye. Okay, the agenda presentation, we'll come to item City Council Resolution number 2021-005. Everybody, you can back up.
City Council Resolution number 005 is a resolution of the City Council of the City of Lake City, Florida, authorizing the execution of to the current with the Florida State Capitol Police Incorporated, providing for a pay plan that affords automatic increases in pay to represented law enforcement officers. Thank you.
Okay. There's a motion that the City Council Resolution 2021-005.
Mr. Mayor, I will move to adopt the city council resolution 2021-005.
Second.
The amendment is seconded. Ms. Hoffman, call the roll, please.
Mr. Green?
Yes.
Mr. Sampson?
Yes.
Mr. Jefferson?
Yes.
Mr. Booth? Mayor White?
Yes. Thank you very much. Okay, now our first wish to address the council, so we have in front of you, so remind that, try to keep it 3 minutes and, if everybody is good to come to the podium and state their name and address or have it for the record, we got quite a few, so we'll start with, Susie Hall.
Hi, my name is Susie Hall. My address is 574 Northwest Harrisburg Drive, Split City, Missouri 55. When I read the Lexington Reporter after your last council meeting, I was alarmed at the misrepresentation of Happy House's interest in the Girls Club. For the record, and I believe each of you have a copy of the letter that Cheryl Walker sent on October 16th in regards to Happy House's intent to use the Girls Club for after-school program. Happy House has been serving our community for 53 years. The diversity of our student population is the cornerstone of our program, and we proudly serve the underserved. Currently, our opening breakdown is as follows. We have 47% white, 39% African American, 8% multiracial, and 6% Hispanic. When the Girls Club closed, the impact on Happy House's after-school program. And this is because we share transportation with the Girls Club. We pay the city approximately $20,000 a year to bring the children to Happy House, which is convenient to the Girls Club location. So when we lost our 75 children in the after-school program, we would have pretty good financial impact. However, early resiliency came about, and we separated plans to purchase a bus so that we could transport our after-school children. We are now, new to the after-school program here. When she will be granted the Girls Club building, we have some days in the curriculum. We are ready to make it happen. We're ready to get the necessary evaluations from the health department, children and families, and the Office of Early Learning. Happy House has had a very positive impact on thousands of children in the city. And we hope that with the partnership of the city, that we can expand our programs and work even more with the children in our community. Appreciate your time and hope that you will strongly consider Happy House and utilizing the Girls Club building. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, I have, Ryan Williams, the second.
Ronald W. Williams II, 352, Northwest Delvin Way, Lake City, Florida, 32055. Basically, when I received a letter over after reading the article and finding out the information that the Girls Club was developed, I sent the letter over to Ms. Copeland, detailing some questions. I have a response back to him. refers to the whole Rules Power Act, which we'll talk about a little bit later. But it grants the authority for municipalities to conduct business in the manner prescribed by its charter, and the rule with exceptions when expressly prohibited by law. So one of the questions that I asked him was, in the cities, the Girls Club proper, I believe most statute restricts the listing and the parameters provided. Section 10, Article 7 of the state constitution says this: prohibits the state, the county, the municipality, a special district, or any agency therefore from lending or using its taxing powers or credit to any private corporation, association, partnership, or person. Our charter specifies in section 1718, specifically states the following: competitive bidding requires all purchases of and contracts for supplies, contractual services, except as specified, provided in this article, shall be based on competitive bids. So the outline of what our charter states, and not the municipality hold powers, it doesn't do away with the charter, but in the event that there's something not in our charter, you can go to the municipality Home Rules Powers Act. But we clearly have a rule in the city that tells us how to deal with for-profit corporations. Now, at the last meeting, we had, Happy House as a not-for-profit, and then we have another day considered as a for-profit. And the organizations that we talked about were for-profits. According to our statutes and according to the charter, the city cannot lease a building to for-profit corporations without competitive bidding. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a process for for-profit entities. Now all of a sudden, we have another non-for-profit, which was never talked about before, which is the George and Warren Foundation. There's no similarities to it, there's no relationship with it. So now we have a non-for-profit trying to do business with a for-profit. But the city charter specifically excludes this. We cannot do business with for-profit entities. Cannot give property to a non-for-profit and turn it into a for-profit organization. It doesn't work that way. Now, on this board for non-for-profit sits a councilman's wife. And as you know, we cannot do business, a councilman cannot do business, cannot give a gift to a spouse who's on the board of a corporation. Now we have a dilemma, an ethics rule that we're faced with. With these dilemmas, I believe that we need to provide other provisions. It's too long to go over this for 3 minutes. But I gave each one of you a written handout there that details all of my questions and response to Mr. Coleman. I thought it was very interesting though. One of the things that Mr. Coleman quoted, he quoted from our Florida Statute 166-021, subparagraph 4. He stops at prohibited, but you can't stop there. You have to keep going. It says, however, noting in this act shall be constructed to permit any changes in a special law or municipal charter which affects the exercise or executorial powers. In other words, the act that he quoted, it can't do away with the city's charter. You have to use the city's charter when you start talking about for-profit organizations. Gentlemen, I think, ladies and gentlemen, I think that we need to be able to look in other places to find other organizations, not-for-profit organizations, that can share this building and look for other places and other things. All right, now, on this, I'm following the ethics complaint. that we need to slow down and do business the right way.
Okay, next we have Mr. Val George.
Mr. Mayor, she reserved her time to go in after Mr. Heffenberg on Departmental 8. She want to reserve to go on to the end with Mr. Heffenberg.
Okay. But you had mentioned going earlier than that.
No, Mr. Bell is asking for that. Mayor.
Okay. Joanne George.
Joanne George is also requesting that we, go ahead, Dr. Heffenberg, Mr. Heffenberg.
Margaret Washington.
I'm also requesting to go after Mr. Heffenberg.
Vanessa.
I'll go after Mr. Heffenberg as well.
Victoria Coker.
Good evening, my name is Victoria Coker, my address is 636 South Eastgate Drive. About the Ambassador Leadership Council. Through the council, I've been able to watch them for the last 2 years, right here in the city. It's tough, and I know because in addition to being the president of the Ambassador Leadership Council, I'm the president of my school national government. Captain of the Performing Arts Club, a member of Mensa, and a member of Midtown, and a camp coach in the summer. Each role comes with responsibilities, just as each of your roles. Despite being a kid, I'm expected to represent what's best for the whole group. And I've learned you can't please everyone all the time, but you can do what's best for everyone. I have learned that courage isn't putting on a tough, mean presence, but instead making tough decisions and not being intimidated by fear, peer pressure, and temptation to accept lead. All of this learning comes with being a member of the Ambassador Leadership Council. It is an easier learning when you are surrounded by good adults and peers who make me better as well. I really want to say thank you because I couldn't be the leader I am without you. And many other students need you too, especially now. Thank you, Mayor Witt, for the last 10 years of Mock Proud's recognition for academic accomplishments, my writing, culture events, and so much more. You have been present for just about every major milestone throughout my school and community events. Thank you, Mr. Jefferson, for the tours, the information about responsibility of being an elected official, supporting NJHS at my school, and much more. Mr. Sanders, thank you for helping at school and providing needed business. When our washing machine was broken, your business helped my family, and using your advice, my mom fixed the washing machine herself. She said it saved her money. Mr. Heffenberg, I met you last summer and you started, and I remember thinking how fun you were. I also learned that members of the team hold each other accountable. Mr. Green, your son walked up to the podium the very first time I spoke him up. I was scared and nervous, and he held my hand while telling me that I could do it, and I did. Ms. Blondell, you're like a grandmother, and I get to watch you and my mom talk to other kids. It's great that I did all of this, but it's truly nice if we could offer this opportunity to other children in the community. The chance to come together and watch all the leaders who are elected to be, and enjoy the benefits of the Ambassador Leadership Council in a safe space without burden to their parents' financial.
Possessing on the phone.
Person name, I'm sorry.
Princess. Okay. Appreciate it. Tara Williams. However, I come as a spirit organization. I come to see the under our care position, and that is community ministry, it's not a global girl. And this ministry is a nonprofit organization that covers mentoring, empowerment, volunteer support, and community in this country, church. And I was actually doing this again, so not just the regular, I like to go beyond our church policy. I've done conferences, workshops that cover not just the spiritual aspect, but financial workshops, educational, relational, and this is what we're doing in the community. I believe strong movement, strong relationships, and strong relationships talk. And so what I'm sharing with you is the information that you want to do that we can, like I said, our full law. And the reason why I'm putting this on our full law is because if everybody's not going to come to one church, I would like to put it in a place or be in a place where everybody feels comfortable or a safe space for everybody to be comfortable to come despite our differences. So, like empowerment, not just young women, are empowering our community. But when we come together, people, we have better relationships, and we have better relationships, we have a better community. So that's, in God, everything that our little girls and kids ministry has done and hope to continue to do in the future. Thank you. I just got to mention that people online do not hear it very well, so if everybody is tuned into the microphone.
I don't think that makes working. This one's not working. Cutting in and out. I mean, the people online can't hear any of it. Yeah, I know.
Can you hear me? No. Testing, testing.
There you go.
Let's try that.
Okay. Ms. John Daniel Johnson.
am Blondell Johnson, Executive Director of the Good Shepherd of Northeast Florida. This corporation, nonprofit corporation, was started 25 years ago, shortly after I left City Hall. The purpose in doing it was so that elderly people or low-income people could get their houses repaired or get them replaced. Over the years, there have been so many houses with repairs that I have done, so many families that I have helped get new housing, whether it be through CDBG or through USDA rural development. It's a step-by-step process because the application, as you well may know, that they're 14, 15 pages long. And I help families through that situation because no one wants to see someone continue to live in situations that they live in. If there's a program that can help them move out of that or improve their lifestyle, they worked hard all their lives, but if their wage was at minimum wage, then there's very little that they can do with the monies that they have. So if there's a program out there to help them, I look for it. Currently, are you aware that Duval County is coming into Columbia County right now to make repairs from the storm that we had 3 years ago? They are. They're coming into Columbia County. There are 5 houses in Lake City that we've been able to get on the list from Duval County for repairs. One of them is actually going to be torn down from what I've been told and completely replaced. Someone has to keep up with that information because the residents that we have are not computer literate. If they are, they don't know what to look for. And I have been helping them for so many years. My husband told me before we left home, and I have an applicant coming to my house in the morning at 8 o'clock. He said, Blondell, that's too early. Too late. She's already coming. But we have formed this coalition to bring us together so that we'll all be in one spot and help everybody that we can together.
My name is Beverly Jones, 1361 Northwest Lakeline. I'm also part of the coalition that B. Coker and Ms. Blondell are a part of, which is also what Ms. Tara was a part of. My portion of this coalition is a 4-H club. I'm not only a mother, I'm a deaconess. I'm aware of the needs in this community. I foster, I adopt, I rescue, and I'm in this community more times than I'm at home. I have recently had a personal loss, which pushed me to seek helping others more. And in doing so, talking to Blondell and B, it became aware that I needed somewhere to develop my mentorship and organize a plan of action. In doing so, Roots and Wings 4-H Club came about, and the organization is not about just plows and cows. The organization stresses head, heart, hands, and health, and the 4 work together, and it supports and develops all youth, rural, suburban, and urban. I have firsthand knowledge of the inner streets of Lake City. I have worked with kids over the summer, taking my own time off to mentor them and take week-long camps with them and find out the needs that they need. In 4-H, I have found that our mission is to create positive environments for diverse youth to reach their fullest potential as capable, caring, and contributing citizens. While 4-H has always had a strong presence in the rural area, it also has a growing presence with youth in many of the largest cities. It allows them to realize their full potential, how to become sustainable, and how to become more like Miss Victoria. Miss Victoria is in the 9th grade, and you would not know that, and it's how brilliant and smart she is. 4-H has always been about youth leadership, citizenship, and it offers all kinds of projects that any youth can participate in. If we come into the city of Lake City, what we would like to do is implement a community garden that has already been offered to us, share that with the lower, the elderly, and the children in this community. We also have a partner here in the city that is going to donate hydroponic gardening towers, so kids that don't have land can actually have a garden. We also will do craft projects, dog training, animal safety, public speaking, robotics, cooking, baking, and various other projects, including some type of academic and leadership in this community. But thank you for your time.
Thank you. Okay, Ms. Vic Coker.
Good evening. Can you hear me? Very good. Thank you very much for allowing us to come. Our coalition is Our Community Cares Coalition. Dr. Chris Essing, our local historian, he chairs the coalition. The coalition is a group of individuals and organizations and agencies who have their independent roles aside from the coalition, but together we come to increase the public's access to resources that are available. Blondell is really, really modest. So although she tells you about the utilization of people in her home, she doesn't tell you about the 3,000 miles that she's putting on her vehicle. Dr. Essing has a way of utilizing history that connects all of us together. You know, it's one thing to hear about history. It's another thing to hear how you're from a lineage of connectivity. Victoria has she's grown up before you all, and she means it sincerely, that at age 4, she got up to speak, and Chris, your son, walked up to her. She was so nervous. And youth to youth, he empowered her. She is absolutely correct in that children need this experience. They need to see positive adults. They need to see other children work toward the same goals they're working toward. What connects all of the coalition members is our commitment to the city, our commitment to demonstrate through our actions that we are willing to put aside our minor differences and focus on our common goals. And our common goals are, again, we need to make the best use of the resources available to citizens. I have a lot of elderly people that don't eat on a consistent basis. There's no one attending to those needs, not because there aren't services available, but maybe the services can't reach them. We can help do that. Same thing about children, same thing about housing, repairs, home ownership. There are plenty of resources available. We've just got to connect the citizens to that resource. And all of us being in one space to provide that makes it really a one-stop shop, that someone could come in and either receive a referral or the actual resource right there. Blondell goes out to people's homes. I go out to people's homes with the laptop so they can apply for services, either because we don't have available public transportation for them, or they don't want to go through the wait that would be afforded in whatever agency. It's just very, very important that we consider options to what's being provided so that we provide the public with a service that doesn't duplicate anyone else. It's not removing anybody else's profitability, but it's putting us in a position where we can reach an underserved population. There's a plethora of funds available. A lot of those funds require some collaboration between local government, be it the city or the county, and nonprofit organizations. There are so many opportunities available if we were to work together. And that's really what this coalition is about. It's about putting us in position where we can start demonstrating, not just to youth, but to other adults, there really is a way to work together. Sometimes you don't get everything you want, and that's okay. It just means that you go back and you fine tune your presentation. We've got to teach each other that. We've got to get to a place that we're learning from each other. And every decision being made that creates conflict doesn't turn out to something that you couldn't have students in observation of. So I appreciate your time. You've been provided with a presentation. It outlines the different coalition members and what their resources are. Since this was produced, We have a few businesses here in town that are multi-million-dollar companies that no one would ever know about, that have offered to come in and teach not only the students, but adults as well, some tips on small business administration. We need all of those things. We need a lot of things. So I just encourage each of you to be encouraged. You start out with prayer, rely on God to help us, make good decisions for all of the community, and consider the benefit of all of the proposals being presented to you. And if there are opportunities for groups to work together and utilize that space, just as Victoria said, it's not always easy. You're not going to satisfy everybody, but you can do what's best for everybody. They might not realize it at the moment, but in time they will. And as our children grow up and they can speak and they're respectful and they understand how to negotiate, that's a demonstration that we're doing what we're supposed to be doing. So again, I appreciate your time and just be encouraged.
Is anybody in the audience that has to sign up that I have, everybody want to be paid? And is anybody in the audience, is anybody on the line?
No, yes, sir.
Okay, then we'll move along. Under new business, we have city council ordinance number 2021, 2177 on first reading. Caroline, will you read that by title?
City Council ordinance number 2021-2177 is an ordinance of the city of Lake City, Florida, amending the code of the city of Lake City, Florida to provide for lien amnesty and forgiveness of fines and liens associated with code enforcement proceedings.
Is there a motion as to city council ordinance number 2021-2177?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. On page 7.
Is that identified?
What's that?
Is that identified on the record, sir?
Still open for, on page 7, I believe, ordinance, this thing keeps getting stuck. Section H, says the applicant may appeal the code enforcement special magistrate's decision to the city council by filing a written appeal with the city clerk within 30 days of the date of the decision. I don't know what happens to the decision. Is Judge Coburn will tell you. I don't know about this jurisdiction. Well, I know about Lake City and the Third Circuit. It's after the decision is entered. Somebody can make a decision and it can sit on somebody's desk for 29 days. The person who is going to appeal this decision might never know, even though it's dated and though it's signed, it's not entered. Mr. Coburn will tell you that if you were dealing with the Third Circuit, and you'll know this, Your Honor, that a decision on order is from the date of entry. So I would ask that this be changed from the date of entry, because the special magistrate's decision could sit on, this is just a simple change, could be sitting on somebody's desk, and this clearly affects the right of somebody that would appeal one of these decisions. And just as a matter for the record, I'm not exactly sure how this can be overlooked by the Coburn Law Firm. It's just another on the list of things that are overlooked and a respectful request that this be from the date of entry of the special magistrate's decision, not the date of the decision. Thank you very much.
I think that's implied in this order. Sir? I think that's usually the way it's interpreted when the judge or the magistrate signs the order, 30 days from that day.
No, not in the court. It's from the date of entry of the order. Not in the Third Circuit. Not if you're in circuit court, it's not. Well, the facts when you do the appellate rules, that's not true.
Okay. Everyone, that's pretty good.
I'm trying to think of the right word, it's not entry.
Yeah, I can think of it.
The word, Mayor, I believe the word to what is being referred by the general public as rendered.
Right. From the window or sign. Did you have a motion on that?
Mr. Mayor, I will make a motion that we approve City Council Ordinance 2021-2177, inserting the terminology from the date rendered, as Mr. Copeland mentioned. So I would amend the document.
For a second?
Second.
Been motion and second, any discussion? Ms. Ivy, call roll, please.
Mr. Green?
Yes.
Mr. Sampson?
Yes.
Mr. Jefferson?
Yes.
Mr. Hill? Mayor Ware?
Yes. Next, the city council ordinance number 2021-2179, first reading. Madam Chairman, do you have my title?
Sure.
City Council Ordinance number 2021-2179 is an ordinance of the City of Lake City, Florida, amending section 22-3 of chapter 22, article 1 of the Code of the City of Lake City, Florida, providing for the explicit adoption of appendices identified in the Florida Building Code, providing for severability, providing for repeal of ordinances in conflict, and providing for codification, and providing an effective date.
Okay, is there a motion as to city council ordinance number 2021-2179?
I make a motion to approve City Council Ordinance number 2021-2179. Second.
A motion and a second, any discussion? Ms. Ivy, call roll, please.
Mr. Sampson?
Yes.
Mr. Jefferson?
Yes.
Mr. Hill? Mr. Green? Sorry, Mr. Green?
Yes.
Mayor Ware?
Yes. Okay, next we'll approve of the resolution, we've already took care of item 3/2021-005, so we'll move to resolution number 2021-007. Ms. Mr. Caroline, would you read my title, please?
City Council Resolution number 2021-007 is a resolution of the City Council of the City of Lake City, Florida, authorizing the execution of an agreement with Audrey E. Sykes, City Clerk, in accordance with Section 306 of the City Charter, to establish the employment conditions, compensation, benefits, and such other terms as are appropriate with the City Clerk position, and providing an effective date.
Is there a motion of the city council resolution 2021-007?
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion for approval of resolution number 2021-007. Second.
Been a motion and a second, any discussion? Ms. Ivy, call the roll.
Mr. Sampson?
Yes.
Mr. Jefferson?
Yes.
Mr. Hill? Mr. Green? Mayor Ware?
Yes. Next, the city council resolution 2021-010. Come on, read that by title.
Yes, sir. City Council Resolution number 2021-010 is a resolution of the City Council of the City of Lake City, Florida, ratifying the mayor's extension of the state of emergency arising from the COVID-19 public health emergency.
Is there a motion of the city council resolution number 2021-010?
Mr. Mayor, I will move for the adoption of resolution 2021-010.
Second.
Been a motion and a second, any discussion on that? Ms. Ivy, call the roll.
Mr. Green?
Yes.
Mr. Jefferson?
Yes.
Mr. Hill? Mr. Sampson?
Yes.
Mayor Ware?
Yes. Okay, next is formal administration, is one we want to do this time.
I'm gonna go after this, after basketball court.
Okay. So item 6 is discussion of possible action of basketball court improvements. Mr. Hildenberg.
Okay, currently, the 1.5 basketball courts in Lennox Park, they're in very poor condition. Approximately $105,000 remaining in the road fund after all the budgeted road work has been completed. this amount's not enough to do a whole road. What I propose is the city improve the Somerset cul-de-sac with approximately $40,000 in funds. The remaining funds could be used to refurbish the existing 1.5 basketball courts and make 2 full basketball courts. They would look very similar to the new tennis courts. In addition to that, we have, and this just came as a surprise last Friday, but Target has, the corporation of Target has announced that they would give a $10,000 grant towards the city towards the project of the basketball court. Evidently, they had an employee who died who had played a lot of basketball over in that area that really liked it, and they wanted to honor that employee. My recommendation would be to do such a nice job on the tennis courts. This could match up with what we have there. We'd still get a cul-de-sac repaired, but this would provide more opportunities for the youth in Young's Park.
Okay, pleasure of council.
I would support using the funds to refurbish the basketball courts and accept the grant offered by the Parliament Board. I don't think we need a motion for that, but I would support that, and I can make a motion if we need to.
Okay. Is there anything you want to do?
Yes, sir. I want to speak to this, and I have a separate issue shortly after you all make your decision on whichever way that the council see fits to do. Sylvester Warren, 832 Northeast Richardson Terrace, Lake City, Florida, 32055. Mr. Neal, I know that this is, Councilman Hill, this is in your district. I would never run interference on anything that has to do with kids and bettering the facilities of any park. But what breaks my heart is that for a year, almost, we've been fighting for Salomon Jerry Park. And I was told that we were going to do a groundbreaking ceremony, and that I was met and asked me would I talk to some of the gatekeepers in our community and take a reduction as to some of the material that's going to be used to make the park nice. Would I take a lesser grade of material? And there's not any money for this, and could you all settle for this? And I understand that most people don't seem to care much about my community. And I don't think that nobody, I don't personally think nobody in this room is racist. But what breaks my heart is that there tends to be a racial indifference when it comes down to a particular community, in particular, more specifically the black community. This park has sat dormant for over 20 years. Mr. Thomas Henry, he's here, he went on record and said that the only thing that ever happened to that park was that they cut the grass. And it's been one fight after another. And most people sitting here know that we wouldn't even be talking about Salomon Jerry Park if Vanessa, Mr. Bowden, myself would not have protested and got involved about the park when the Lusty Festival was about to happen, and the city was talking about removing some grass from behind some businesses for almost $50,000-$60,000 pouring concrete. It upset us to the point that we said, hey, look, if there's money to be wasted on such foolishness, why we can't make a park in our community better? And we protest. We know, all of us know, some of us know, that one of the workers of the city threatened to shoot us with water hoses, with pressure washers. If we didn't move out of the way, the police department came down, told the city they didn't have the right to be there, they didn't have the proper paperwork, and that's what led to us even having any discussion about the park. There's been an extreme delay about it, and my point is, why is it, and I guess I'm looking for answers more than anything, why is it that it seems that people can just walk and find good ideas and good things to do in other areas where there's a park? But in my community, we've had to fight for water and sewer when there were outhouses. We had to sue the city of Lake City. through the NAAC with Mr. Glenn Bowden, Linnell Presley, God bless the dead, Mr. Linda O'Neill. We've had to sue for that. We had to sue for paved roads in this community. We had to sue to keep the city from tearing down the only black high school we had, which is the Richards Community Center. Most people think that people just decided to preserve that building. No, the city decided to preserve that building through a lawsuit. We've had to fight, die, lynch, everything you can name just to get a foot at the table for some crumbs. And though I don't get in the way of this, I'm just saying if the council moves in this direction and willing to spend that type of money on a whim, which is a great idea, I like basketball, I'm good with that. But please don't rob us from our part when we come to you and say we're going to iron rod fence and be like, won't y'all settle for one of these black chain link fences with the rubber around it and things of that sort, instead of composite fences? Won't y'all take the old wooden fences and every so often we'll come put some paint on? I was told that. And so the answer to that is don't do us that way. And can we get some type of firm commitment from this council today that says community north of the railroad tracks, we're going to treat you all just like we treat every other park. We're going to give the Youngs Park a nice basketball court, and we're going to give Sallie Mae Jerry Park a nice park as well. That's all I'm asking. I think all I can do is appeal to y'all at this point and say, just to be fair moving forward. Let's make Youngs Park great. Let's make every park great. Don't hold back the money from these kids. Don't hold back the money from Youngs Park. Don't hold back any expense when it comes to Sallie Mae Jerry. That's it.
And we have a motion on the second.
Like I said, this is what's the point of this. I also concur with this Mr. Warren about Sallie Mae Jerry Park. Like you said, we have to fight to get even lights on the Christmas holiday. If we want to do this Youngs Park, we need, again, to do something for Sallie Mae Park. I say do something, I mean, it's Sallie Mae Jerry Park just as well as Youngs Park or any other park. And now, I think the county owns that. But again, it's part of the city. So we need to, what I want to commit to do, was try to Sallie Mae Jerry Park.
Mr. Mayor. So, the two issues are, separate. So I fully support the Youngs Park, basketball court. And I know that we have been working, and hopefully the city manager, can speak to it since, Mr. Warren has brought the issue up tonight concerning the improvements at Sallie Mae Jerry Park. But I know that, I'm committed to Sallie Mae Jerry Park, the improvements that we talked about, CRA funds being available to, restrooms and other improvements. We're waiting on a drawing, is my understanding, so that we, I think the one thing that this council can mess up is we could try to fix Sallie Mae Jerry Park on the cheap, or we could try to do it right. And we need to do it right. We need to do it like we did Wilson Park. And so I fully support what Mr. Warren is discussing with Sallie Mae Jerry Park. And Mr. Huffenberger, can you provide us with an update?
Sure. We had some plans done for it. I believe Mr. Swell had been heavily involved in it, and we're looking to go forward with that. The funding would come out of the Community Redevelopment Agency, so we need to schedule our meeting as soon as possible, because that's, and we're looking to basically totally upgrade that park. One thing we're trying to get is the lot next door cleared. There's multiple owners there. But we can do it in 2 phases too, so we don't have to wait on that portion of it, but that would be for your parking area, and possibly a restroom if we succeed in getting that part of the additional lot. But we have a number of improvements that we could be making there, And there is money in the CLA funds to do this. We just have to get that meeting scheduled and get it done. And we could schedule it with enough notice. We can do it either the next meeting or the following meeting and just bring it to the council for a vote under the CLA meeting agenda, because that's where the funds are.
Mr. Mayor, I know that we had authorized the city manager to come up with a drawing for that part. Where are we with that specifically, so that we can have some feedback from the community and those involved in using the park?
Okay. I believe there was 3 different drawings and 4 different drawings. There was one that seemed to be favored by most of the people that were informally looking at it, and we could put that on the website and ask people to take a look at that. We could also put down the list of improvements that we're looking at proposing, and get the word out to the community that that's what we're going to be asking for at the next CLA meeting.
Mr. Green, if I may, Mr. Mayor, if I may, briefly to Mr. Green. Mr. Green, I got my engineer to donate his time to the city to draw the plans. My engineer is also the DOT engineer, Mr. Marty Humphrey. I called on him because the city couldn't find an engineer. They said they couldn't find one to keep the project from being delayed even longer, which I felt was an excuse. I called on Marty Humphrey, and Marty Humphrey provided the 4 different drawings. The community has met at the park with Councilman Jefferson and Mr. Dan Sweat. The community voted as a group, invited everybody to come down and picked out one of the plans. And so I'm lost as to, and I was told this was going to be scheduled, that we're going to have a groundbreaking ceremony on Martin Luther King Day. That's what I was originally told. It was going to be potentially tried to be done on Martin Luther King Day. We're going to have some shelters out there. We're going to do a groundbreaking ceremony. I stayed in contact. That didn't happen. They said they didn't have time to advertise it and all these different things. But nonetheless, we just want to see it move forward. I think there's some excuses about the bathroom and other property. I've talked, there's about 12 owners, 9 are willing to commit. I've asked Mr. Sweat to get with legal, because he asked me my advice. What should he do at this point? I said, get with legal, get the 9 people to commit their portion of the property and let the attorney deal with the last 3 siblings or 3 heirs, and we buy it, and we give everybody the money split equally, which was closer to the goal of that property. But I don't think that property should circumvent or prevent a bathroom from going there. There's no park without a bathroom. I think you've said that several times.
Absolutely. So I think, Ms. Belfer, you have the direction that you need to move forward on that project, yes?
Yes.
Mr. Jennings, the chairman of the CRA, said we'll call it, bring that up, so moving on. Okay?
Excuse me, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah.
The issue, the reason why the meeting has not been scheduled yet is we need to finalize the members, and we are having that meeting tomorrow at 4 to go into the meeting. So the members for the committee, so that is the hold up on that.
Okay.
Yep.
We are doing that.
Yep, we're doing that tomorrow.
Okay, thank you.
So I think we're back to young park, Mr. Mayor. I think there's a motion and a second.
Right. Ms. Hodges, you call the roll.
May I ask, is there any question on that?
Sure.
I have down, the motion is to reallocate the funds to refurbish the basketball courts and to accept the grant funds from Target. Does the motion also include to do the proposed improvements at Somerset cul-de-sac as well, Mr. Green?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Mr. Sampson?
Yes.
Mr. Green?
Yes.
Mr. Sampson?
Yes.
Mr. Jefferson? Mr. Hill?
Yes.
Mayor Witt?
Yes.
And Mr. Mayor, I now come to you about my grievances. I think that at this point, I'm sure that everybody on the council have received an email from me regarding my safety as it relates to 2 officers, in particular, Officer Costco and Sergeant Johns. Just to give you a little bit of background, I've dealt with these officers on several occasions, and I filed written complaints against them. I've also put their disciplinary records on social media. Different ones who work in law enforcement with them have privately communicated with me that these officers, in their words, have a hard-on for me, and that they pulled me on Saturday, tried to provoke me to resist. I didn't. Sergeant Johns Wayne was saying a separate video when asked whether or not he treats any law enforcement treats the black community differently as to how they apply laws. He said, "Yep, we sure do." Exactly. That's on video, and I haven't. I think I've sent it to some of the council members. And I've asked Mr. Heffenberger, along with Mr. Dan Swinnett, myself, Mr. Bowden. We have an organization called JEC, which is Justice and Equality Coalition. We begged them for a citizen review board that would have ended all the concerns, the transparency, the accountability, and the fears. It's a real fear. And I know most people sitting in this room understand it's a real fear to be a black male dealing, and black in general, but black male in particular, dealing with law enforcement. You're taught different as a child. I talked to my son. It is, you can't imagine what it is to walk in this type of skin in this country. And I feel for my safety based on their behavior and them saying that they apply laws differently in my community. I asked Ms. Gilmore several months ago to help us establish. She refused to meet with me. She refused to meet with JEC. And instead of meeting with JEC, and he would testify to this at any meeting or any level that needs to be testified, she took one of the members of JEC, asked him to come to her office and meet with her, and told him that I'm willing to do a citizen review board if you'll be willing to let me control it and to not put Sylvester Warren and Vanessa George on it. And if you don't agree to that, you all will never get a citizen review board. And I told Mr. Heffenberger about this. He refused to meet with us. I had to call on Councilman to ask him to come meet with us. He finally agreed to meet with us, and Mr. Sweat said they would work on it. This is a real field. We need a citizen review board. There's nothing that I can do as a black man, as a minority in this country. I'm not the majority. Unfortunately, the majority are my white brothers and sisters. And in many cases, they have the power to make the change, to make things better for the life of the minorities. What I'm appealing, not to your councils members, but I'm now appealing to your humanity. I'm asking, since I can't get any cover and protection from the chief, I've begged Mr. Heffenberger all weekend long. I've even begged Mr. Sweat. Mr. Sweat responds to me, "Hey man, call me any time of night and tell me Dan Sweat is on the other end of the phone, and I come and I try to assist you if Mr. Sweat, I mean, he did already." And so, what can we do here? I mean, this is an honest discussion. This is a 5,000-pound gorilla that continues to be in the room. I think our nation is divided. I think that leadership should be rooted in accountability, transparency, and justice. And I think that I believe that we have a council that can aid our community, which is the predominantly black community, in not having to have to feel this way when dealing with law enforcement. And I think that the way that we can get this done is through a citizen review board. And besides that, asking that the chief, as I've asked Mr. Heffenberger, to give me a separation command between myself and these two officers that seem to be targeting me. My attorney has reached out to Mr. Fred Copeland Jr. He's also getting ready to send off letters to the chief and also to the city manager in the morning asking for the same thing, based on the tapes and based on all the evidence that's on social media and everywhere else, to give me the separation order. You know, what can you do? Can y'all save me here? I mean, my life matters too. And I don't want to have to walk around. Most people know I'm an activist. Most people know that I'm after bad cops. That's my thing. I love my community. I want justice for all. My community is heavily, heavily targeted and is heavily, heavily discriminated and profiled. Harvard study says that white men and black men use and sell drugs at the same rate, but the arrest rates, the incarceration rates, and the sentencing rates says otherwise. I need a protection order. I need a separation order. I need this council to call on the chief and call on the city manager and say, hey, look, there's many law enforcement officers that if something comes up, they can deal with me. These two officers don't have to deal with me, and I don't have to deal with them. If I'm that concerned to come before you all and appeal to your humanity and say, help me, then I need help. I typically do not ask you all for help. I'm serious about wanting help to have these officers separated from me. Even my attorney finds it very serious. He's done called the city attorney himself. My grandmother's concerned. She called me last night. She called me 6 o'clock in the morning. She's calling me every hour, wanting to know where I'm at. This ain't right. And I think a man, no matter who he is, should be able to speak his truth and to speak his mind and stand up for justice and equality. And if I'm saying something and it's true, I should not be penalized for it. I should not be targeted for it. I should not be harassed for it. Nobody should. And this ain't right. This ain't right. This ain't right, Mayor. This ain't right, Council. I'm asking that we do something about my safety and about the way that the black community has to deal with law enforcement, so there's some transparency, accountability, and justice. You guys are the 5 folks that can make a difference and squash this. Our town don't have to be like other towns, and I think we're better than other towns, but we have to put practices and put policy and put things in place to demonstrate that and to give us a better result. Oh my God, I need help.
Yeah, I'd like to comment. The officer that Mr. Moore was speaking about, Saturday, I was getting ready to about 4 in the morning. So I thought maybe just a funeral going on at the church, our church. So later on that evening, I went to get something in, and someone approached and said that the cops was stopping people around. So again, I read them out, so I talked to the people. So the next day, Sunday, I'm in my pickup truck. I'm heading east on 9. This same particular officer. It was getting behind me somewhere, but anyway, he came me off at 90, right away down the golf cart, still the golf cart. He came out there, and when he came to his house, I knew he had a motorcycle. I felt like he was stopping, so I switched lanes. When I switched lanes, a pickup truck got behind me. So when I got to Silver Lake, I got in trouble. This particular officer said, he failed to turn back, so when I made him turn, he could turn behind. So when I made him turn, he got behind, he threw the lights on. When he threw the lights on, I pulled up. I got an attitude because I knew I had to go to the right. So when I pulled over, he had another officer with him. And the officer, both of them got out. One of them, but both of them came up on the driver's side of my vehicle. And I let my window down, and he asked me, says, what? I need to see your driver's license and the registration. And my next question was, why did you stop me? And the situation is escalated. Long story short, this guy seen my truck, which my truck is similar to Sylvester's truck. And I don't know if he thought I was Sylvester or what. But anyway, long story short, I won't go through the whole ordeal, but he gave me a ticket. What? Said my license plate was, you couldn't see my license plate. Wow. But this is what we deal with, we're dealing with in Lake, not only Lake City, throughout the world. And I'm gonna jump ahead with the daycare. The reason why we're in this situation with the daycare, because Captain got first opportunity, instead of putting it out for everybody to bid on it. Once the word got out, then that's how Lollipop got involved. So again, it's the way that things are being done in Lake City. That's why we're in the situation we are now. Even with the hiring process. They had, the airport guy retired. I called Joe and asked about that. Or when I asked him about it, the job had closed. Again, Brad, I don't mean this, I hope you don't take this personal. Nobody applied for the job. Which Brad worked, that's his job. He was an assistant out there. But if Brad was qualified to be in that position, you got that position, right, Brad? Or you just in? Oh, okay. But again, the system is broken. And we need to start fixing it somewhere. And that's all I have.
Okay.
I want to say something about the police situation. I know you all cannot, and you can't understand the police situation, and I'll give you a close-up of both of their trucks. But I want to say this about the officer. When I came on the scene and I was talking to the officer, and as I was talking, he said, I already know, I was talking about why you don't do community patrolling. A friend and I was saying this, and I was like, get out, we don't mind the police in our neighborhood. We want you in our neighborhood, ride through our neighborhoods, our communities. And he said, I'm over there on your street. I know where you live. You live on Joe Coney, and Sylvester stay on Richardson Street. Now, for you to know my address offhand like that, that makes me nervous. I'm not gonna show you, but why you know automatically where I live? This is scary. This is serious. So you can say, okay, yeah, Sylvester, whatever, but he's never threatening nobody. But you got somebody who has a gun, who has the legal on their side, telling me exactly where we live at, telling me our address. I was taken aback. So you know my address by heart. It's not like I never called the police to my address. I never had the police come to my address, but you know my address. It's not a place where you come all the time. I never called law enforcement. The only time I say my address is right here. And those officers are not in here right now, but they know my address. They know his address. He told me just like that. Costco. The one I actually wrote a report on, filed a complaint on. The only officer I filed a complaint on just told me my address, just like that. And the sad part is, I didn't even recognize him because I'm not out to say, oh, that's him right there. I don't even know him if I see him because I don't have a vendetta against him. I know John's because he's always doing something. Everybody talk about John's. But this is real serious. For you to know our address, all he's asking for is an order of protection. That's not going to cost you anything. It's not going to hurt anything. Send another officer. Send this young lady. Send anybody except those two. Because something tragic is going to happen. We don't want that. We need to be preventative. Think about that. If I just tell you your address, why do I know your address? One more thing. Also, as they're patrolling, people are walking. I got a student. I used to be a teacher. Hey, Miss George. And people know we're activists. The police stopped me and asked me for my ID. Why? I don't know. They asked me for my ID and asked me where I was going. I'm going to get a haircut. They asked me if I had anything in my book bag. And he's like, why? So you're profiling. That's another thing. We have an issue with the police department, not all police, but we have an issue with certain officers. And it's scary.
Here's another thing, and I'll be done with this issue. I'm still at a loss, and maybe someone can explain. I'm still at a loss. We're in a pandemic, from everything I understand. The economy is fragile. We have people who have lost their jobs, on the verge of losing where they stay, on the verge of eviction, foreclosure. A lot of people still are mourning for loved ones lost due to COVID. Why are we writing tickets? Why are we in the poorest community of the whole? Why are we out there targeting and writing them tickets? They cannot afford $800+ ticket. It's no way in the world you're gonna force more crime. If they have to cost that $114, you're gonna have them sooner or later on a petty theft charge because they're gonna have to feed their family. They don't have the money. So $114 may not be much to some of us, but $114 ticket to the average person in my community is a deal breaker. It's a deal breaker between eating and paying a bill or going in the store to steal because they had to pay a ticket to keep their license from being suspended. This is real stuff. And I know most people don't experience it. I'm from that community. I've lived very, very poor, been through the HR system. I understand their frustration. I understand their lifestyle. I've been there. I've lived it. That's why I advocate.
And one more last thing about the tickets. I will understand if the tickets were real traffic infractions, but you stopping people to say, let me check your tent. That was the majority of the calls for the stops. Let me check your tent. So you're giving people during the pandemic $100 ticket or more for tent. Let me check your tent. That's your reason. Your tent, the tent on your vehicle, tent.
Okay.
What can we do, Ma'am?
We're very aware of it, but I know we can't make a decision tonight on something we just heard about.
You can't make a decision?
Yes.
Do we have any response from Ms. Milton or Ms. Redmond? What we're doing, are we able to do
I asked Mr. Corleone Sr. about it because I had specifically, I sent an email to Fred Corleone Jr. to check into that right away because I went to the chief and she didn't know anything about it. So immediately went to Fred Corleone and asked about a note of separation, and I haven't heard back on that. And I think Fred Sr. was not apprised of it either, so as soon as I get something on that, I can, I'm not sure what's involved there exactly.
The lieutenant told me that the chief has the ability and the power to do what is called a separation command, which would put a no contact order against the officers. So the process is real. The chief has the power to do it. She could do it, and if she wouldn't do it, I would not understand. And if she decided not to, I know that Mr. Heffenberger, being her boss, could request that she does it. But it is possible through what is called a separation command. I've spoken to different ones within the department, and one of the lieutenants have reached out and asked on my behalf to request the chief do a separation command order.
Mayor, can you hear me? Because I cannot hear you all well. Can you hear me? First of all, there is a process when there is a complaint on any officer. I did ask Chief Butler if he would bring the policy that we have. We are a very transparent department. Anything that we do, we normally have video to show actions at a traffic stop, how it was initiated on any officer. And so if any citizen has a complaint on any officer, there is a process that is called a formal complaint process. That is what I'm asking this city council to do, to direct citizens to use the complaint process that we have in place. And when you do that, we look into all complaints from all citizens, all right? And because one of the things that, a process that we have, everyone is able to look at all sides of the issues, all sides of the questions, and all sides of the concern. So I will caution the city council that if you allow citizens to use the process that's already in place.
Okay.
And as far as the separation, you're absolutely right. I have not heard of a legal term used to call citizens, officers, I should say, that we will step away from a citizens if there are concerns about any behavior. So I did ask the city manager if he would allow Fred Kobelan, our city attorney, to look into that particular legal term, if it is a legal term, to look into that request. And so that we also can look into that when we're looking at any kind of complaint that comes before you or for me. Officers are due process. They have officers' bill of rights. Officer bill of rights, if a complaint comes against an officer, they, by statute, they have due process. And so that's what you have before you tonight. And I'm asking you tonight to direct the citizens to use the complaint process that we have in place and give those officers their due process, and we cannot violate their Bill of Rights.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, I don't think we're asking to violate anybody's Bill of Rights, but we're asking for one's safety. I think just as well as the officer have rights, I have rights. Everybody has the right to feel safe. And when you have an officer on social media, Councilman, saying that he applies the laws differently in our community, he's bold enough to say it on social media, knowing that he's being filmed. It's all on social media. It's got over 1,000 views. The whole black community. What type of leadership would allow this officer to even, why is he not on administrative leave? Why is he still roaming the streets? If this is his attitude toward this particular community, why is he left? I understand Bill of Rights. We cannot violate his rights. We can send him home on administrative leave. Why is he still out working? Why is he allowed to say that they do this? And he didn't say just himself, he said we. Who is the we? This needs to be investigated, and for him making those remarks, that is very gutsy of him and very arrogant of him and very frightful for him to say that. If it's wrong, and he should be on administrative leave until a thorough investigation is done as to why he felt he could make those comments, what did he mean by those comments, and who are the we who differently apply the laws to the black community versus other communities.
Mayor, may I please speak?
Yes, ma'am.
Again, Mr. Heffenberger did forward me the email that Mr. Warren sent to him and referenced the comments made by one of the officers. We are currently looking into the entire video that was recorded on scene. And so therefore we will, as I mentioned before, look into all concerns and all matters that's been brought to your attention tonight.
She said they're looking into it somewhere. Is she still on there?
If you're saying something to me, I cannot hear you. The sound has been horrible tonight. I have been straining actually to hear you. So if you said something to me, I didn't hear you.
You faded out of the last part of what you just said.
I'm not sure what part. I'm sorry, Mayor. I'm not.
You were investigating it, y'all were looking into it.
I said, okay. Yes, sir. We're looking into all of the issues and concerns that's been brought to your attention tonight. All of them. The email that Mr. Helfenberger forwarded to me, we are looking into all of those. We are reviewing all videos of everything that was captured this weekend. All videos we are reviewing, and we are conducting a review of all actions.
Okay.
Am I clear? Did you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
There's something further?
No, that's it, man.
I have a question though. You mentioned something about a citizen review board, and I know we don't have one here, they have them in neighboring communities. I wonder if it would be worthwhile for us to have a workshop just to see if that's something that the community districts would be interested in. I mean, I think accountability, transparency, those are all crucial parts of policing, and I think we have that, but maybe we could expand on it and improve somewhere on inputs. But I would be open to something like a workshop to explore that further.
Okay.
I would agree with the same.
Okay, we'll set it for a workshop. All right, next is CARES Act funding update, Mr. Huffenberger.
He's calling on the next item.
Okay, sure. Okay, on the CARES Act funding, Columbia County has less funds than the combined request of the county, school district, and the city. The county will be meeting to determine how to divide the funds, and the agreement will need to be approved between Columbia County and the city of Lake City. And it is anticipated Columbia County will take up this issue at a future meeting once they figure out a plan for the disbursements of funds.
Mr. Huffenberger, are they talking about possibly prorating that by what's left? Or
Yes, something along those lines, I think. So it'll be a kind of a prorated percent to each entity was one of the options that we're looking at.
And they don't know exactly what the final number is, do they?
No, I heard they thought they had more remaining than what they actually have. So they do not have enough to cover all the costs. And you have, $4 or $5 million or so, and the requests exceed that.
Anything else? All right. Item 8 is Girls Club building lease. Update, Mr. Huffenberger.
Okay, I'm still got some homework to do there with the parties. I'm trying to get some details worked out, such as the elimination of the separation of the buildings, possibility of jointly using the play area, and things along those lines. I've got a list of terms to the attorney, and we also have some other concerns. We've got that City Hall is, so far, we have about $4 million borrowed for that. The cost at this point of $5 million. I'm looking at trying to cut that back somehow. And we look at all available city space to see if there's any possibility there. And it was my understanding that we were looking at sticking with nonprofits, and there's a few legal terms, I guess, that they're looking to work through, but as soon as we get the homework, then we can bring this to the city council.
Without doing it before every time.
Lavelle George, 123 Northeast Kirk Court.
Joanne George, 1273 Southwest.
Okay, so we can discuss.
Lake City, Florida. The first thing I want to make clear that my name is Lavelle George of Lollipop Hangout. Lollipop, we have the utmost respect for you. Okay, and I want to make that clear. But I don't have respect for being treated like a second. Well, I'm not even gonna go there first. On January the 4th, the council voted for the lease for one of the buildings for the girls' club. And so we're still waiting on Mr. Heffenberg to produce the description of the lease. So on January the 4th, you guys voted, okay, everybody agreed, and he was supposed to come back with the terms of the lease. On the 6th, Mr. Fred Copeland Jr., he sent him an email and said, hey, I'm waiting on a description of the premises. That's all we need. On the 8th, I sent a request saying,
since we didn't hear from the other party, I'd like to request the building next to the tennis courts. That was Friday. On Tuesday, on Monday, I spoke with Mr. Heffenberg on several occasions. He said he was waiting on Ms. Phillips to give him a description of the lease for that property. On the 11th, on that Tuesday, Ms. Phillips contacted DOC, Department of Corrections, and they were removing the appliances, the refrigerator, the stove, the ice maker for that building that I requested. And then here on the 11th, Mr. Fred also sent Mr. Copeland sent another email and said, hey, only thing we're waiting on is the description. So here we are again, as of the 13th, the 19th, still no description. And I find it hard, how do we have time to schedule an appointment with DOC, drive cross town to the girls' club, supervise them, taking the refrigerator, stove, appliances, the same appliances that would serve the girls' club would serve any other after-school program. But it was no time to send an email for the description so we can complete the lease. And so now I'm trying to figure out what's the problem.
Can I ask you, is Lollipops a nonprofit?
Yes, our nonprofit is under George Warren Foundation. Just like with Happy House, everyone it's just a name. So we are nonprofit.
So who would be the lessee?
George Warren Foundation. I'm Lavelle George, Joanne George, Vanessa George. The licenses are in George, Joanne George, Vanessa George, and Lavelle George.
Okay, so it wouldn't be Lollipops right now?
No, when you have a 501c, if we want to name it Mr. Fred Copeland Kids, we can do that.
Right.
Yes, so there's no issue with the 501c, and both parties have the same credentials. From my understanding, they were getting the building, we were getting in the building. And it was,
That's my
everything's
other
okay.
question. Is that nonprofit a 501c3?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, I didn't ask that last time, and it's been
Oh,
brought to my attention.
Lollipop Child Care Center is a brand. Lollipop is the brand. When we open anything, we always say Lollipop, as in Lollipop Hangout. Everybody knows Lollipop name. Also with Lollipop Children's Center, we say Lollipop Nursery, but it's Lollipop Children's Center. We use Lollipop is the brand. That's why if we did go with another center, Lollipop blank blank Mayor Witt. So, but it's Lollipop, the brand.
But we actually have to have a lease, from my understanding, with a nonprofit.
Right.
Okay, and I misunderstood last time.
Yeah, we do have a nonprofit.
And my thing is, it was brought to our attention, they said, do you want a building? So it's like, sure, I'll take a building. And then when we met last time, the information had changed because we offered Happy House $100 a year with no maintenance. Only thing they had to pay for is electric. And then when we found out they wasn't interested, that's when we went with the when he told us $500 a month versus $100 a year. And so I feel then that I'm treated like a second-class citizen or something. Like, why would it be one way for another party and not the same for me? But
offering the same services.
So we came to a conclusion for that last week, and you guys instructed him to do a lease. And so we're still waiting on it. And I want to know why.
Yes. Can you hear me? I'm not sure I'm talking. Okay. Mr. Mayor, from what I'm hearing, there is maybe going to be an extra building, maybe not going to be an extra building, maybe a building, but now they're taking a refrigerator out of it and it's not a building. Copeland Law Offices still does not know exactly what property is going to be leased. Second issue, today we received a, I guess you'd call it a proposal that says, quote, Lollipop Hangout will be program director of all said intent and purposes, and it has attached to it, Lollipop Hangout is a for-profit corporation, notwithstanding the answers you just received. Secretary of State calls it a for-profit corporation, and as you know, with a for-profit corporation, you have to look into the fair market value of the lease, just like you have with Arrow, a for-profit corporation. And it's causing a slight hang-up at the office. We got it today, and they expect a result by this evening. I'm sorry.
We didn't give you that today.
I got it
The
today,
information you asked for with this 501c, we gave back in November.
I'm not talking about the 501c.
Oh, okay.
I'm talking about the information on the for-profit corporation named Lollipop Hangout Incorporated. I received it today.
Okay, we're not from, I don't know how attractive George Warren Child Care Center is gonna be. You know, if that's the formality to put the name, the agreement and the lease is for George Warren Foundation. That's the name of the nonprofit. On most nonprofits, they don't use the actual name. That's not that attractive for children. Yeah, I go to the George Warren Center. You know, so you use another name. So if we need to put the Girls Club at George Warren Foundation, that's fine.
Well, we do have a nonprofit organization, which is the George Warren Foundation. And that's what we are applying for. That's what we gave all our information under.
And then the daycare certificate or whatever you do through the state will be through that, or will it be through
Yes,
Lollipop?
yes.
Yes. Everything will be going through the George and Warren Foundation, nonprofit.
And my issue with the
The lease
questions,
will be, like Mr. Caroline was saying, that he had another name that he was given, but you're saying that it'll go through the George Warren Foundation.
Right. Lollipop Child Care Center Incorporated, we're for-profit. I want the coins. Lollipop Hangout is for-profit. But whatever we do under the George and Warren Foundation is not, it's nonprofit.
Okay, but he's saying what you sent him was something different.
we didn't see anything. My last correspondence with Mr. Heffenberg was on the 13th. I didn't send anything saying about a nonprofit. The information that he asked for me when he first mentioned this, I gave it to him, the nonprofit information. He asked for Sunbiz. Now, one of the my question is, I'm curious to know all the questions that are being asked for George Warren Foundation, associated to Lollipop. What concerns me is none of these questions are addressed to Happy House.
I have addressed those to Happy House.
What's that?
I said I have addressed those to Happy House.
Personally? I mean, like on a phone call or email?
When I spoke with them.
Oh, okay.
And I went through all that same thing about their status and what name they use and how they're set up and how they get licensed.
So I didn't get a personal call? So this is kind of what
I didn't call them, they called me.
Oh, they called you, okay.
Well, the point we're trying to make right now is, you all voted on the lease for Lollipop Child Care Center under George and Warren Foundation, and that's what we're looking for tonight. We're looking for that lease that you all approved.
My understanding is we asked Mr. Heffenberg to look into it, and there's some issues that have came up that we need to look into to make sure we're doing it the right way. But I don't think we actually voted, because we have to do, I don't even know what the terms of the lease are.
Mr. Heffenberg haven't addressed us about any concerns. He hadn't called us and said there was a problem with anything. That's why we're here. He hadn't called us and said there's a problem with this, anything. So we're wondering what's the holdup with the lease? Why we hadn't signed? So when I talk to him, on the occasions that I have talked to him, he's always told me that everything is okay. I just got to get it in writing. Everything is okay. I got to get it to the attorney. Everything is okay. So I'm just trying to find out what is the problem now.
And our attorney's saying that the letter that you gave them, or whatever it is, that name is for-profit corporation.
Well, let's see the letter, because did it come from my email? Because I didn't give them anything.
Caroline, who was the letter from?
You can give it.
Okay. It says, intends to use the premises for an after-school child care center with Lollipop Hangout Inc. as the program director of all said intent and purposes.
I did send that. As a director.
Well, let's be clear, right here and right now, that Lollipop Child Care Center, no, let's, whatever we do, it would be under Georgia Warren Foundation, nonprofit.
Okay.
Is that the same foundation that the presentation was made, that there's a council person's spouse? I mean, you guys need to go in private and deal with these issues. But someone gave a presentation that there's a spouse of a council person sitting on this foundation.
Okay, we can't get this, I got you. Okay, I think there's just issues we need to look at, and be sure that we're doing it the right way. Because if it is a private corporation involved, then we've got to deal with that, and do it right. Just to protect us and you.
And I definitely do understand that. Are you questioning whether or not we have a nonprofit organization? Is that your question?
This is not clear. It mentions a nonprofit and a profit in the same paragraph, which
Okay.
is confusing.
Mr. Mayor. One issue is, we don't have the liberty to, one, rent to a for-profit company, so.
Understandable.
And reading that, it is kind of confusing. Because if it goes to a for-profit company, then we need to do RFPs, they, go through the whole process to bid things out, it's a whole different process, I believe. Isn't that correct, Mr. Coberline?
I'm sorry?
If it's a for-profit corporation, it's a whole different process to rent out the property, correct?
If it's a for-profit corporation, sir, the city has to consider the fair market value of the property in the lease. The lease can still be for a nominal amount, but that has to be expressly considered in order to protect the city from the state auditors. You can't just give away the property, like using Arrow, for example. You can't charge Arrow $1 a year when they're out there making millions a year.
Okay, so we both understand that we have several businesses that are for profit, okay? And so we do have a nonprofit. So our wording, because we're going to be running it, we're going to be the directors or what have you. So there is a nonprofit, and the license under DCF will be Lollipop, but it will be under the nonprofit organization.
Status.
Yeah. So basically, we could take that. When we said Lollipop running it, that's who will be handling the business because we are a Lollipop.
That's the brand, Lollipop.
Sure.
So if you look at the business structure, the foundation will be the parent company, and Lollipop will be like a service provider providing the actual service, something like that structure.
Lollipop is just our family business name. So it's gonna be George Warren Foundation because we're all Georges. And we're just simply going to we're gonna run it, it's gonna be Lollipop After School Center.
Lollipop After School Center, but it will be under the George and Warren Foundation. But it's gonna be Lollipop because everybody knows Lollipop. We're gonna use Lollipop, but it's gonna be under the George and Warren Foundation.
Now, here you go.
Basically, what they're saying with Lollipop is just the brand name. Instead of going to buy Walmart toilet paper, you buy Cottonelle. Lollipop is Cottonelle. Generic George and Warren is Walmart. Probably made by the same people, but I buy Cottonelle because it's Cottonelle and not Walmart toilet paper.
Thank you for this. Thank you.
I kind of get what you're saying, but if somebody, an auditor looks at it, and they see Lollipop, a for-profit, then we deal with the issues that Mr. Cameron's talking about.
So, with that being said, Mr. Coberline, sir, what do we need to get this straightened out so that we can get the lease process? Mr. Jefferson has a question.
Let me speak, Mr. Mayor. On our last meeting, I was under the impression that we was talking to Lollipop organization. I didn't know, at least it wasn't my impression at the last meeting, that George Warren, that's who we was talking to when you did your presentation to us. I left under the impression that we were talking with Lollipop, that's what we were dealing with. But under the scenario that you just mentioned, that you are a nonprofit up under George Warren Foundation, and then you will, for lack of a better word, you will run your business up under the umbrella of George Warren.
Right.
Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now, will the services you provide, will those be free services, or are you going to, will there be a charge for it, for those services?
It is
I think that's what makes the difference to, the city, or to us as being the owner of public property there.
We would provide.
I think as Mr. Jefferson, if you don't mind, to try to help wrap everybody's brain around what the concept is. George and Warren Foundation is the nonprofit organization that is a parent company or affiliation company of Lollipop, right? And it would be nonprofit. It will do just like every other nonprofit. It will get with DCF. It would bring in the money from Early Learning Coalition. That money would come into the nonprofit. And just like any other nonprofit, for the people who work there and provide their services, they will be paid from, everything would be nonprofit. Nothing about it would be for profit. Nothing about it. These ladies are so crazy about their brand, they will be there because they have the 40 years experience only providing and helping to do the services of childcare. Does that make sense?
I understand what you're saying, what you're saying, but, and I agree with what the mayor said. I mean, there's some legal issues here that I'd like to get clarified in terms of what we can or we cannot do as a governmental body.
Right, I spoke to...
Because we are dealing with a nonprofit as well as a...
No, you're strictly dealing with the nonprofit. I think that's the misunderstanding. You're strictly dealing with George Warren Foundation. I spoke to Mr. Fred Coberline Jr. He's ready to do the lease. He said that the lease doesn't matter as long as it's in the nonprofit. So he just wanted to know whether or not, and we sent him clarification that the lease is to go into the nonprofit. We understand legally that the city cannot lease out the building to anything less than a nonprofit in the manner in which we've been discussing. From day one, Mr. Heffenberger know that we've been dealing with George and Warren because early on it was stated that Ms. Terry Phillips were checking out Lollipop and said that they did not have a 501c3, and we told them that we were not operating up under Lollipop, that it was Georgia Warren. Georgia Warren Foundation has been the whole conversation since November. That's all we talked about. With Mr. Coberline, that's all we've submitted to Ms. Terry Phillips. That's all we've submitted to Mr. Fred Coberline Jr., who I've emailed and I've spoken with on several occasions. Even went out and asked to measure the buildings to get the separation line, which is the concrete between the two buildings. There's a joint that Mr. Fred Coberline asked me to go get measurements so we can know the distance to split the buildings. Everything has been communicated, George Warren Foundation, 100%. There's no hidden surprises. I think everybody's being transparent. And so that's why you have this confusion. But everything from day one has been George Warren. Everything that we've talked about legal-wise has been George Warren. All of it has been pertaining to the 501c3. That's why Ms. Phillips and Mr. Heffenberger has the 501c3 status information.
But even the newspaper last week had it confused. They
Well,
was lollipops.
Yeah.
And I tried to.
We bought all of this on this.
I tried to explain it. He said, I don't want that legal. He said, that's too much for Mr. Vilsa. I don't understand all that. Just give me the short version. And he dealt with it.
But that was the impression the public got.
Yeah, that's the impression the public got.
Right. But there's never been the impression between Mr. Heffenberger, Mr. Sweat, nor these ladies, nor Fred Jr.
Mr. Heffenberger presented the legal papers, the legal status of George and Warren Foundation.
Are we correct in that, Mr. Heffenberger?
So I just need to know that we're okay legally to have that umbrella over the
We're not asking for an umbrella. We're asking you to give a lease to George and Warren. We're not asking for an umbrella. Fred Jr., we've talked about this. Nobody's asking for an umbrella.
Okay.
Daycare license have to be in George and Warren to operate?
That's fine.
That's fine. It doesn't. No, it doesn't. No, it does. It doesn't have to. But if that satisfies the lease, we can do that. But it does not have to.
It does not have to.
Legally, it does not have to.
I think if we lease it to George and Warren and the daycare is in Lollipop, which is a full profit, I think we're gonna have problems with an audit.
We'll do it in Georgia Warren.
George and Warren has no problem with providing any and all.
But I'm just saying, for the purposes of this lease, it's got to say that they will be done there to legally meet our requirements.
Absolutely. George and Warren will absolutely meet any requirement that you put out there.
Mr. Mayor, is there any other public comment, or I don't know if these ladies are finished with their comments?
I think I had Vanessa George left, but she spoke some, and Audrey Washington.
Thank you all for listening.
You don't have to watch your step.
Thank you.
I'm Audrey Washington Ruiz, dual residency here in Lake City, 180 North McCray Avenue, along with 604 East Leon Street, and also heir and family properties off of Sisters Welcome Road. I live and reside in Sanderson, Florida, most of the time at 9586 County Road 127 North. I am like, as sitting over there, I've had my little words and everything ready, but I mean, after all the conversation and the different organizations who came up, I'm going to mention that awesome organizations, because I know all of the women who represent those organizations, and it's such a sad thing when I come back home. Most of the time I come back home and I hear about the disparities on different things that are going on, and I've been hearing so much positive things coming from our council that we had not always had. And the issue seems to be with our city manager. Conversations that were made to a specific organization. Again, I'm with Lavelle, have known Happy House for many, many years. Rosalind Rosper and myself have served on many committees for
for Good Shepherd, Ms. Blondell, who has helped my family along with so many other families, to B. Coker and her CARES Coalition, and to one organization that I have participated in, God's Global Girls, through Minister Tara. And it's sad that they're on the back end of this when the conversation should have been made long ago. I'm hearing that the initial prospect of getting the lease was done, all the applications and all the information was given back in November. And now we're here today in January acting as if, what's going on, and you have organizations who have come to be a part of that. I don't blame them, but it's sad that they're on the back end of it because of the initial response to Joanne George, who I am standing in solidarity with on tonight, was that she would be a recipient of part of that lease. So now we're hearing about words and how they're done, and we know through council and through things that were done through the city, there's things that we had to rewrite or we had to write to make sure that we got a particular grant or whatever. So let's not try to act like it's one way, well, I heard that you were talking about this one way and now you're talking about that. The whole thing is that a man's word should be his bond, and tonight our city manager is standing in air. When he initially contacted, or whoever contacted Happy House initially, and did not be inclusive in contacting any organization that was in our community to help our youth, that was not a good decision, in my opinion. The council meeting that I came to on the 4th, I was excited because one of my sisters was going to have an opportunity to continue her livelihood as a single African-American mother who came and has got a global look at what child care is all about, not only on the child care end, but just on the business end and the leadership that she has provided to our children for 40 plus years. And many of these organizations have many years in their pockets. So in my opinion, again, your word should be your bond. If you've already told her that she could be a recipient of this lease, we're always putting the cart before the horse when it comes to different things that are made. The perceptions in this community, I'm going to wake Stu up because him and I fussed about different things that we have done in the community and how we'll start doing it and then we'll turn around and then the play has already been changed. You've changed everything. When you get back to it, and I said, well, we didn't talk about that last time, so what are we talking about now? So that's what it feels like in here to me, the fact that the conversation that was made in November, now it's like, well, now we're going to do it because you're this and you're that. So I am very, very sad at what we're looking at here today about how the miscommunication, and to me, the council should have been the first one notified when he contacted Happy House. And then maybe you guys could have used your influence at the table saying, well, if you contacted Happy House, did you contact blah, 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 blah. So it's a pickle that we're in, but again, the city has many properties that are that should be available that has been surplus or city-owned, and these organizations should be given an opportunity to have one of those buildings if at all possible. One of the things that we have to remember as we are leaders in the community, it does not take our name to have a commissioner or council behind it, but B and I have been in different things too where we were not told the right things, and when we came to get the right answers, our right answers were not given to us, or the same answers were not given to us. So I admonish you today, councilmen, and the way that you stand, and you stand in solidarity with the community and the people of this community, that to hold your city manager, Mr. Helpenberger, to his word and what he said that he would do. It's just as simple as that. Say yes. I don't hear nobody. Say yes, and that's all you have to do. And we'll be in support the same way I'm here for Joanne. I'll be here for you and whoever else feels like there's an opportunity that can be made. But there is no way that we are here tonight wondering if the lease is going to be given to Ms. George when it was told from the city manager, your leader of your city government here, said that she could have it. So I say, give it to her. You said she can have it, now give it to her. Can I get an amen? Amen. Okay.
All right, that's everybody ahead signed up, so we're done with that for this evening. Next is comments of council.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, ma'am, I'm sorry, I do have a thing right in front of me. Chief, go ahead.
thank you very much. I would like to make a formal request to the council. I look forward to an opportunity to have a workshop to talk about the feasibility of a citizen review board. But before that happens, I'm making a formal request that each one of the city council persons, if they would do a ride along with the officers, with a officer. It's one thing to have a perspective and to go into a workshop, but there is another perspective when you're able to come in the inside and look and see what are the internal workings, excuse me, of your police department. So I'm making a formal request tonight that before there is a workshop, that each one of you would do a ride along for a shift, a part of a shift, to get to know your police department and to understand what goes on in the police department. You're able to ask questions, you're able to see for yourself. And then when you come to the table for the workshop, you're armed with information, you have an understanding of terms, you have an understanding of practices, and all of those things that goes on in enforcing laws, also how we handle different situations and circumstances. So I'm asking tonight, and yes, sir, this is a formal request, that each one of you would do a ride along on a shift with an officer with your police department. Can I get that affirmed tonight?
Chief, can you hear me?
Yes, sir, I can hear you.
Chief, that sounds great, but if I'm speaking for myself, if each one of us, or if I ride with the officer, of course, he's gonna be on his best behavior.
Thank you.
Yes. So, I mean, again, it sounds good, but I won't do it.
Councilman Hill, I
Yes.
want to believe that you have discerning. And yes, anybody, certainly that is something to be considered, right? At the same time, when you are doing a ride along, I said the internal workings, you have an opportunity to also to look and to ask questions. But if you are able to talk to an officer, and what you walk away with, you can discern whether this person is on their best behavior or not. And even if they are, you're still able to see what is going on in the city. And the second thing to all of the council members is this: every internal affairs investigation that we have conducted, that is a public record. Our policies are a public record. Anybody sitting in that council, and you city council persons, you're able to review every policy. And I'm not going to put anybody on display right now, but if I ask the question tonight, have any one of you ever looked into the Lake City Police Department policies? Anyone in the audience, have you ever read a police department policy? And okay, and this is okay. All I'm asking tonight is this. I'm just asking because immediately a barrier went up. I'm not going to do it. So you walk away with the perspective of one perspective and what you're feeling for one officer, whether it's right or wrong. I am simply asking, as your police chief, if you would bring down the barrier tonight and come get in the car with one of the officers that you know or that you like or don't like. Get in the car with an officer, ride and ask questions and look for yourself. And not only looking at the officer, I'm asking you to look in the community where they patrol. I think that's the least that you can do for the officers before we get to the table. Come and see. Come and see. That's what I'm asking of you.
I have done a ride along, but I'd be glad to do another one.
Thank you, Mayor. Can I get the rest of you please to ride?
I've done a couple of ride-alongs myself, and both times I rode along with the officers, I didn't have a good experience. So, I passed.
I have done it before, Chief, right along with an officer, and it was very eye-opening and educational to me, and I will do it again.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
I would also commit to the chief to do the ride-along. If she would work through the clerk's office to schedule that with my schedule, I would certainly welcome that opportunity.
Okay. Thank you, Councilman Green.
Into that, Chief.
Thank you so much, Councilman Sampson.
All right, thank you very much. All right, comments, council.
Yeah, one more thing with the chief. Chief, Saturday, I know Saturday, where those officers was at located, the people that they was bothering, those people only do one thing. They walk to where they're going, to that location. They drink, but they're walking, not bothering anybody. Now, it was an incident that happened there, but how often does an incident happen at that location? Now, the energy that they were putting in to harass those people over there, that's the same energy they could put in the other communities, which allow music 2 and 3 o'clock in the morning. But again, the police department is nowhere to be found 2 and 3 o'clock in the morning, but 2 o'clock in the afternoon, you're gonna bother people that's not bothering nobody. They're all in one area, not bothering their souls, maybe drinking, but they're amongst themselves.
Councilman Hill, I thank you for the opportunity to address that. One of the things that you probably don't know, maybe you do know, sometimes citizens call and they don't want to give their information or give their name as a complainant. So that's one thing that we deal with. Just as some of you have heard complaints about why the officers here, on that same day, we had several citizens who came to the officers and said, thank you for being here. I received a call personally myself saying, Chief, why don't you all do something? Will you help us in this area? We have had at least 2 to 3 shootings in the area where the traffic stop occurred earlier. We've had at least 1,500 calls between 2010 to 2021 or 2020, I believe. 1,500 calls on that. Not only that, we often get all shots fired, discharging firearms. They are asking us to help, Councilman Hill. They are asking us to help, and I am going to help. As your police chief, I am going to help those citizens who are asking for assistance. One man called me personally, said, Chief, I'm not going to give you my name, but this is where this is happening, and this is what this is going on. And so I'm going to commit to everyone tonight that we are going to make sure that everybody's feeling safe, and at the same time that everybody's treated right and professionally. And so we're going to balance this. So there's no way that I'm going to turn a blind eye to someone who's also asking for help. The data is there, Councilman Hill, and to council persons. The data is there based on the kinds of calls and concerns that we get. And this notion that we're only doing it in that area is a blatant lie. It's a blatant lie, okay? We are enforcing everywhere. And especially when people are calling for assistance, and it's not here for me to sit and go back and forth, but it's very disheartening to officer who's putting on that uniform every day and they're trying to go to those areas where people are asking for help. It's very disheartening. And so what we're going to do today, every complaint that comes in, we're going to look into it. But at the same time, there are citizens over there who are asking for our help. And they're not going, because they're afraid. They're afraid if they tell on somebody that they are going to be hurt. And you know, Councilman Hill, that there are people who would not give their names when they're given the complaints. Chief, don't call my name. Don't tell them I'm the one that called. And so I take that and send officers over there with the complaint because they're begging me not to give their names and not to tell who they are. And I have that to happen more times than often.
Mr. Mayor.
To our officers.
Mr. Mayor, I'm sorry, I just had to chime in for a second. This information, though I have a lot of respect for the chief, this information isn't correct. I've had several meetings with Mr. Heffenberger, along with the chief being present. I've asked for data, asking for data traffic stops, asking where the tickets are actually being produced at, to try to get an idea as to when they're pulling for what we call pretextual traffic stops, stop bar stops and things that sort. The chief told me in front of Mr. Heffenberger and other folks were present that there's no way to compute that data. I did a public records request for it. I think Ms. Audrey Sykes is here. She may not remember, but we can verify that. Ms. Sykes, am I lying? See, I've asked for information. I was told what? It don't exist?
I think that was the answer. I would have to go back and research it.
And so in these properties that she's talking about, you got to see this area. My grandmother owns the vast majority of this area. There's no houses around what she's talking about here. My cousin owned the house. Cecilia Davis owned the house where Mr. Mike lived, where everybody hang out at. That's my cousin. She hadn't called. My grandmother owned the vacant property next to it, and the city owned other vacant property. Every house is 2-3 blocks away, and most of them are my relatives. And no one has complained. And it kills me as if all the calls and all the crime is in one community. I would never believe that all the crime is only in the predominantly black community. I would never believe that all the crime and all the calls, because that's what the chief has basically just said, 1,500 calls. She never mentioned any other community. Why can we not be honest that crime happens in other communities? Take our law enforcement and equally put them out to work. If a call come in, absolutely, you come to that community answer. But to act as if we're the worst of the worst and we're savages and only crime going on in our community, that's not true. And if she's concerned about every citizen, why she's not concerned about my safety? She mentioned that she's concerned about every citizen in her statement. Every citizen. I would never turn my back on a citizen. If a citizen call on me, I'm going to help you. Well, Chief, I'm calling on you because I fear for my life with your officers, Officer Costco and Officer Johns. Why are you not responding to my help for need, my cry for help? Yeah. Help me, Chief. This is wrong. I've done these 119s. I have the whole police department policy. I've studied it. I've responded to the chief in emails. She won't respond to me. I asked about a citizen review board, and the audacity to take one of my organization members, one of my board members, and bring them down to your office and try to get them to do a citizen review board and tell them that if they do a citizen review board, you willing to do one with them, but I cannot be on it, nor can Vanessa George. Chief, that's wrong. And this man is willing to testify before this council in any investigation that needs to go forward. Chief, let's be honest. The community needs help. It needs transparency. It needs accountability. It needs justice. And the one way that you can do it, nobody should mind more transparency. All a citizen review board, there's nothing negative about a citizen review board. Why are we fighting it, Chief? Let's just do it. It's the most positive thing. I've talked to every state attorney in the Third Circuit, from John Direct to Don Kennedy to all the major players. I've spoken to John Kennedy at the post office. Everybody said you all would be nuts not to do it. As a matter of fact, Don Kennedy said that not only should you do it, but every community should have its own citizen review board, so that you know that each community feels safe and they have transparency. So everybody agrees with it. Law enforcement agrees with it in part. The state attorney office agrees with it. And I've talked to the chief justice, judge, and he agrees with it. So I've made the calls. People agree with the citizen review board. People do not mind more transparency. And you shouldn't either, Chief, and nor should the department. If the officers are doing it right, nobody should mind more transparency. It's the best thing for the community. It's the best thing for a community that is hurting right now when it comes to law enforcement officers treating them differently. And if there's nothing there, the Citizen Review Board will prove that. If it's to be praised for what they're doing, the Citizen Review Board will do that. If there's something not to be seen, the Citizen Review Board will show that. There's nothing harmful about it. I don't understand why there's such strong opposition or this nudging to reject the idea of a Citizen Review Board. It's all positive. Everything I've looked at in this nation, I've looked at almost every Citizen Review Board. There's over 1,000 of them, and all of them are positive Tallahassee, where she tried to get a job in. As soon as the police chief got there, he implemented a citizen review board. Everybody has one. What are we doing?
Okay, we're gonna look into it. All right. Comments of council?
Mr. Mayor,
Yeah.
I know that we've lost some folks who were here, and I hate that they left, actually, because they're leaders in our community. And, you know, I want to say, I know we had a lot of folks here from Happy House, and I appreciate the work that they do. Ms. Coker, Mr. Essing, I know wasn't online, but his coalition. And I just want to say that we have many great organizations in our community tonight that came in support of their organizations. I got to tell you, Lollipop is in my district, and Ms. George has a long history of serving the youth in my district, and she deserves to be applauded for that. I think that Mr. Helfenberger maybe has not handled the situation the best. I think that this council maybe hasn't, and I wasn't here present at the last council meeting, and so I'll take responsibility for that as well. I have to say that after hearing everyone tonight, and it seems that everyone's competing for facilities that they think are available. I have a concern, Mr. Mayor, that we're picking the winners and the losers. For-profit, not-for-profit. Who's favored, who's not? We didn't handle this situation correctly. I think we didn't notify the community. There's many daycares if we want to be in the daycare business. There's many nonprofits that are doing fabulous work in our community that deserve our support. But at the end of the day, the city council is not a charity, it's a government. And we have a sales tax bond to build a city hall, about $4 million. We're going to reduce our footprint. I think that we're going to find as we move through the design and build process of City Hall, I think that we are going to find that we don't have the space. We have a limited amount of funds. We're not going to have the space that we enjoy today, which is part of the reason to build a new City Hall. But I think that we need to take a step back when it comes to leasing out these facilities to any of these great organizations. I think, you know, tonight, you know, we were presented with ethics committees, and I know y'all received the same emails I've received about, you know, threats for lawsuits and contacts with attorneys. I think the board, the council can do the citizens and the taxpayers a favor here by stepping back, reviewing this policy, making sure that it's available, everyone has equal access. If we have buildings that are surplus and properties that are surplus, there has to be a process that is correct. I think we're going to find that the city probably still needs those facilities, Mr. Mayor. I don't think that the city can do away with them. And certainly not before City Hall is, the new City Hall is completed. So that's different. I'm not familiar specifically with, just because I've only listened to what the council members did at the last workshop, so I may be out of turn. But I just want to go on record as saying, Mr. Mayor, I don't support leasing those facilities out to any of these great organizations until the city, A, determines if we need those facilities, and then B, determines what the process is so that everyone who's doing good work has an opportunity if we find those buildings in surplus. So that is Chris Green's statement on it. So a little bit different probably than where the rest of the council is, but I think we need to take a step back, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, any other comments? Not,
Well, I agree, Mr. Mayor, before we leave, I agree in part with Mr. Green. And I think from the onset, from our last meeting, at least it was my impression, and from the agenda, that was what the city manager was asking, was putting before this council, to give him some directions in terms of what the council felt that needed to be done with that property. And it took, in my opinion, took a different turn. He never got those specific directions from us. I'm not saying that it needs to be leased out, given away, or the city needs to sit on it. But he had, Councilman Green had a valid point there that I hadn't thought about it in the midst of all of this. But in my opinion, the city manager never got clear direction from this council in terms of what the council want or felt that needed to be done with the property. And so here we are here, you know, in the midst of different ones competing for it, when, in my opinion, we haven't made a clear, firm determination in terms of what we really wants to, how we wants to utilize that property from this point forward. So that's my take on it and the way I feel about it.
Mr. Helper, I think, has.
I just got one comment on the, with the hiring process, we've been trying to make improvements there, and on the airport manager notice, it ran 3 weeks. There are a number of applicants from all over the walks of life. We're screening candidates tomorrow, and it's a diverse screening panel. And interviews haven't been set yet, but I just wanted you to know that we're trying to be more diverse in our whole hiring process. So that's where that's at, and there's no preconceived anything in that.
Okay. Mr. Mayor, so I was hearing Mr. Jefferson's comments back to leasing of the facility. I do think that this council does owe Mr. Helfenberger some direction, because I know that when I spoke, I promise you that me and Ms. George probably are not on the same page with my comments and hers. And I'm certain that's the case with the other outstanding organizations that spoke tonight. So to be clear for me, I think that the council needs to have Mr. Helfenberger review those facilities, review the city's need, make a determination, make sure that we can move forward, whether it's with Ms. George's organization or any other great organization, and that's in the best interest of the taxpayers. So I just want to, for me, I think that we need to step back until we make a determination of the city's need for those facilities.
Okay. Sure.
One question I have too, you mentioned the city hall, the new city hall. I don't know where we are in the process. I think there's a drawing being put together. Sounds like we should be updated on where we're at there. If we're gonna need more space than what we're building, that would be good to know now.
Absolutely,
Or at
Mr.
this
Sampson.
point, because I don't want us to build something and not have a place for everybody, and this is kind of the first I've really been hearing about that.
Yes, sir. So, Mr. Mayor, to address Mr. Sampson's concern, I agree. I think we do need an update, and I've spoken to Mr. Helfenberger about that with timelines included as well. And I think that's a priority for this council when it comes to the new city hall. But I know that when we did the sales tax bond, basically it's $4 million for city hall. And although that sounds like a lot of money, I can promise you that will not build a building the size that we are currently in. And so space is going to be at a premium in the new location. And so I think there are there's a potential for us to have to move services outside of what's currently located in City Hall, outside of that building. I may be wrong about that, I don't know. It's just what I expect to have happen. I know you can only build a building so big for $4 million.
Right. I got a question about that. Can we be updated at the next meeting about this building and maybe see some plans and what's going on? We have that at the next meeting.
Well, I was under the impression that you was trying to get the county to, was the county still going to get elected or not?
At this point, the county's not interested in pursuing it, whether it's even the meeting space or the building itself, but they may in the future.
So we moving forward, instead of waiting on the side, so we're going to be a part of it, or not. So, make sure we got no space to do what we do.
Right.
But
The county had said long ago, if I recall correctly, that they were not interested. And to me, that was an affirmative. They did not want to do anything joint or be considered for needing space in the new complex.
That was my understanding as well, Mr. Mayor, so, I think we're left only with what the city had refinanced and made funds available for, and, so I don't think, my understanding is that the county was not on board as well.
Well, they said maybe down the road, but that's not the way we do it. We got to move forward. There might be something we need to have a workshop on, several of these issues.
Well, I think it'll fill in maybe the next meeting where we're at. I think we have plans, I guess.
We've got, a draft of plans that we can present. Just give an update as to where we're at the next meeting.
I think that would be helpful.
Okay?
I hear you, gentlemen, speaking of space, and whether it's you have to give it to Lollipop or the Happy House or me, I think where the children are concerned, we're losing the whole focus. Don't let the interests of adults get into the real need of the girls' club. It's for the children. You guys you meet once, twice a month, you guys can meet and City Hall can do whatever they do whenever, at any space, what I'm trying to say. Don't punish the children of our community. Don't punish your grandchildren, the kid down the road, whether it's us or them or anybody. Don't, just say, oh yeah, we might need this space for whatever. The kids need the space. So get together, your minds together, and find out the qualifications or whatever it may be so that the children, not the facilitators, not Lollipop, not Happy House or any of these organizations, find a way, you guys, to make it work for the children. Because they're the ones that are home during this COVID, they can't get out. We can meet anywhere, look, we're here now. We can do that, but the children need that space. So like I said, whether it's me, Happy House, or whoever, give it to the kids. Find a way to come together for the children. Okay. Right.
Kids were lost when we shut down shop. The kids that was not thought about when they put all that money in that building downtown. Again, people don't tell them from outside of Commissioner Sampson. I was the only one to support keeping girls to the vote. So until council sees that it's all about the kids, this is what's going to happen.
Well, fellow councilman?
So, Mr. Mayor, to address Mr., I'm sorry, I didn't cut you off.
Oh, go ahead.
Okay.
So just to address Ms. George, I agree wholeheartedly. I think you provide a great service. I think that the kids of our community are important. And I think that those needs are met, Mr. Mayor, through many organizations. And I think what this council has done to pit these organizations against one another, trying to advocate to receive 2 buildings is a stain on our council. I do think that. And so with George, to you, I would apologize because you should not be in the position that you're in tonight. And Happy House should not be in that position, nor should any of these other fabulous organizations who are doing the work that they're doing. And so we have, I think, let you guys down in that respect. And so I will own that 100%. I still think that the city council and the city manager needs a plan for how we move forward in the direction that we want to take it. I think that the city will find that it has a need for those facilities and that they can't give those facilities up. I do think that. But as a council, I agree with Mr. Hill. We need to determine, are we in the childcare business? Is that the role of the city government? And whether it's after school or daycare or any other business, is that the role that we need to take? Who's filling in for those roles? I know ODB Kids just was purchased. I know that college bought the Old Boys Club and our City Old Boys Club. I know that they have a child care with students going on the college. So I think that there is a higher level conversation that we need to have on this council as to what is our role and what's the need in the community and how are we filling that, or is it our responsibility to fill? So Ms. George, I agree with you 100% on that. It is what the council has done for you and the other fine organizations tonight should not have been done, in my opinion. There's nothing I can do about that, but to say what I think is the right thing to do, and for us, is to look out for the taxpayers of the city. And I think that there are things on the horizon that may say that the city would be premature to lose those buildings right now. And I may be wrong about that. We may look at it and they may be available, and there may be a process that we need to go through to make sure that we're affording everyone in the community an opportunity to benefit. And the council does not need to pick the winners and losers in our community, especially among great organizations like Lollipop Daycare and all of our other daycares. Ms. George, although I may not support the leasing to you at this time, I wanted to commend you for what you're doing and say that I may support you in the future, but I don't think that this council has the information that it needs to be an honest broker for you at this time. And they may not agree with me, I don't know, but that's just my take.
And maybe you misunderstood me. What I was saying was, don't let the adults get in the way. Find a way to service the children.
Yes.
You know, and like I told Mr. Heffenberg from the beginning, I said, well, how are you going to choose? Because Happy House has 100 years, Lollipop has 100 years, and nobody wants to go a bidding war, anything like that. But what I asked of the board or the council today is find a use for the children. You know, whether it be Happy House or me or somebody else, but find the building for the children. It served its children for all these years, and that's just me saying, you know, keep the children in mind. Yeah, put them first. Yeah.
Well,